Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to The Voice Within. Today, conversation will be about consistency. Consistency is something that I used to struggle with, and not in every situation, not in every scenario of my life, but I always had to have certain conditions, certain mood, certain feelings so that consistency could stick on. Other than that, I would often give up very easily. When I observe my life, especially my 20s, if something was rewarding to me, if something was interesting, if I felt good about something, then it was easy for me to stay consistent. And I think this is for most of the people. But then as soon as something would happen, I would slip out of that consistency. I remember in my 20s, I used to go to gym a lot. I used to lift weights like very heavy. I was thinking, what made me do that so consistently at that time and doesn't make me do it consistently in my older age? I remember in my 20s, I used to go to gym even when the snow used to be up to knees, when it was raining, when it was cold, when it was hot, when it was warm, doesn't matter, I used to go to gym. But then later on, when I became mom, it became harder to keep that consistency. And of course, motherhood itself put us in position that a lot of things we put aside because of the motherhood. But then even when motherhood would allow me, I always wanted to get back to that consistency from before, but I was struggling to keep it up when the life becomes hard. Once I decided to have my podcast, I gave myself very easy goal. I said, okay, I will record one podcast episode weekly. This is not hard. This is not something huge. I can maintain it and I can be consistent with it. So the goal was not let me build some huge audience, let me do something, I don't know, big thing. My goal was let me free my voice, let me build consistency, let me become the woman who records one podcast episode every week. My goal was let me build identity of that woman, regardless of the life situation, regardless of the mood, regardless of the circumstances. Let me prove myself that I can do that one thing every week, regardless of what is happening around me. And after almost 2.5 years of existence of my podcast, I have skipped 2 podcast episodes during regional situation in the Gulf. Other than that, I always found a way to record my podcast. Sometimes I would record it in the car. Sometimes I would record it in the morning, at night. Sometimes I would pre-schedule episodes when we are traveling, but I always found a way to maintain that consistency in my podcast episodes. And then I was thinking, what was different this time? Why, even when the life was hard, even when my mood was not always perfect, even when I sometimes didn't have inspiration and what I'm going to talk about on this platform, I always found a way to do it again and again. Because as much as I love this platform, there is life behind it. There is things which are happening, sickness, child, school. There is things which are always in some way standing between me and that consistency. And I think what was different this time is I started building identity around the habit that I tried to embody. I moved from let me try to record podcast episode every week. I moved into identity sentence. And identity sentence is I am the woman who publish podcast episode every week. That sentence gave me so much power and gave me so much wish to maintain it. Because every time when I wanted to give up or skip some podcast episode, every time when the life became hard, that sentence that was embodied in my identity which I was trying to present in my behavior was like popping out. And I would feel like, no, I have to record podcast episode. I have to find a way. Even if it's just small 10 minutes chit chat, I have to do it. It was never about virality. It was never about let me post to become big. It was about trust in myself. It was about my identity. It was about what I was trying to show to myself. Can I keep the word which I give to myself even when the life is hard? even when I'm not in the mood. At some point, growth stops being about understanding ourselves and starts being about living from identity. At some point, we reach the point where we have to learn to do what we want to do, even when our mood doesn't cooperate. Mood can change, life circumstances can happen, motivation can drop, fear can happen, but identity needs deeper root than emotion. All our emotions, our moods, our life circumstances, they are reactive. They are changing day to day, moment to moment. But our identity needs to move regardless of those emotions and circumstances. So if we say, I want to embody the identity of women who work out, regardless of what is happening around us, then we have to create conditions that support us to maintain that identity. Now, I'm not saying here that we're supposed to push ourselves beyond our limits just to prove ourselves something. The same thing that I didn't push myself with my podcast when it was mentally impossible for me to record something, but I would always create conditions and I would go small just so I keep moving instead of giving up. So if we take example of working out, that doesn't mean we're going to keep pushing when we are tired, when we are sick. We're going to trust ourselves and our own judgment when it comes about this. But at the same time, we have to be able to recognize when it's tiredness, real life circumstances, and when it's just mood or laziness. Temporary life situations happen and we adjust our consistency based on that. We maybe work out a little bit, not too much. We maybe just go for the walk, but that doesn't mean we stop completely. Even if we take break one day, that doesn't mean we're going to stop working out completely. It means that the next day we're going to continue. If who you want to become keeps changing based on your mood, it feels like you constantly restarting yourself. You start with something, it starts with the promise you give to yourself, then you are full of energy on the beginning, then when the mood hits, the life becomes hard, you stop, you give yourself excuse why you are stopping, then you want to get back because something inside of you is pushing you to continue, then you get back and you feel like you are starting from the beginning, then again energy comes because you just started, then the life happens, mood happens and you stop. This was the cycle that I was living in for many years until I discovered inside of myself the root sentence for identity. This is who I am. This is what I do. One day you may feel this, one day you may feel that. And you maybe think, okay, I am lacking discipline. But what if it's not discipline? Because if we think about it, to be somebody who has discipline, we have to build enough evidences that we are that person. Discipline doesn't come by itself suddenly. It's not some magical skill that somebody gives us. It's something that we build through repeated evidence of discipline. So what if the problem is not discipline? What if the problem is exactly what was my problem? That root sentence which is connected to our identity. You can shape that sentence however fits your life and what you're trying to build within yourself. I am the woman who does what. The point is learning difference between honoring emotions and letting your emotions lead your life. Our emotions are valuable information about the things, but they cannot be only authority in our life. If they are authority in our life, then we become reactive. We stop based on our emotions. For me, with my podcast, what was always helpful is, like I said, starting small and building plan B in the case that mood or life happens. What I'm going to do if I cannot stick to the plan A. So if I cannot record my podcast episode seated in my office with a perfect microphone, can I record it in the car? Can I record it when my son is sleeping? Can I do it with small microphone in the living room? Can I pre-record few podcast episodes for the season of my life, which will be a little bit challenging because of the life circumstances? I think that the biggest struggle that we have is basically acting opposite to our emotions. We take emotions like a command, like authority over our life. This is what I feel in the moment, so that means that this is what I'm supposed to do. But usually growth and success is hidden behind doing opposite than those emotions. That's why I think many people don't do it in the first place, because it's not easy to feel something in a moment and then still decide to do opposite from that. Like, I am afraid to speak, so I'm not going to speak. But it can be I am afraid to speak and I still speak because I am building identity of a woman who is not afraid to speak. Or I feel guilty to set boundaries, so I'm not going to set boundaries. But what if we can say, I feel guilty and I set boundaries regardless because I am building identity of the woman who doesn't feel guilty for protecting herself. I feel tired today, so I'm not going to work out. What if we can say, I feel tired today and I will move slowly because I'm building identity of the woman who work out regardless. Mood and emotions are temporary, but identity is built through repeated choices. Every emotion is trying to give us some signal. Fear is trying to protect us. Guilt maybe is showing us where is our loyalty. Shame maybe is showing us fear. But none of those emotions mean stop what you're doing. Most of those emotions means go slowly, pivot, start with the small steps. Self-led woman, she leads herself in this kind of situations. She recognizes the body signals and she adjusts her pace, but she doesn't betray the promise that she gave to herself. Because what I learned over the years, it is more damaging for ourselves when we don't honor the word that we gave to ourselves. Once we reach the point where honoring the word that we gave to ourselves, it's our law, it's our value, it's our standards, then betraying that word becomes very, very expensive. Because after that comes that feeling of, I didn't honor myself, I betrayed myself, I said to myself that I'm going to do something for myself and I didn't. Your moods, your life circumstances, your emotions, they can explain what you feel, what is happening in your life right now. But those same things, they cannot decide who you become. Self-leadership doesn't mean I don't feel fear, I don't feel emotions, I don't have moods, I don't have life circumstances. Self-leadership means I feel all of this and I always remember what did I promise to myself, what did I choose for myself, and I act accordingly. So for the end of this podcast episode, I can summarize it like this. Whichever thing in your life you are trying to be consistent with, try to create the sentence around that. I am the woman who does what? Create plan A and create plan B. Plan A says, I'm going to do this. I'm this type of woman. This is who I am becoming. But in case that the life, mood, or whatever happens, this is what I'm going to do instead. In this way, you have two promises that you gave to yourself. If the life is okay and mood is okay, I do A. But if life hits me, I already pre-planned B. We often try to start big. I'm going to do that now, big thing. I'm going to start big thing. Start small. Start with the small things which don't detonate your nervous system until you adjust to consistency. And after enough repetition, you reach the place of embodiment. Then it's not anymore, I am the woman who is building identity of, I am the woman who built identity that I wanted to build. And if I'm honest, it is really nice place to reach. It feels really empowering when you become proud about the promise that you gave to yourself and you stick to it regardless of moods, emotions, or life circumstances. That would be all for today. I hope you enjoyed, and until the next week, I wish you a beautiful rest of the day. Bye.